Hey everyone, after today's lesson video, you are going to know how to play Can't You See by the Marshall Tucker Band using slide and some soloing tips to go along with it. So the reason why I chose Can't You See, one, I've been playing the tune forever in live performances, open mics, jam sessions, that sort of thing, because it's the perfect tune for that sort of situation. And two, it utilizes a lot of the same blues techniques and everything I've utilized along the way. So it's really a good tune and vehicle to learn slide, and not just slide, regular guitar too, because the original recording doesn't even have slide. But yeah, it's just a great vehicle for all that stuff. So first off, let's just go over the chords. So the entire song is just 3 chords on a loop. So we have D, then we have C, and then we have G, okay? Now for C, what I recommend using, and I'm in open E by the way, so I'm tuned E, B, E, G sharp, B, E. I almost tuned to open D today because the song is in the key of D, but I figure it would be a greater challenge for you all to learn in open E. That way we can learn the fretboard a little bit more. We're not just utilizing the open strings, which is great, don't get me wrong, but I thought it would be a good exercise to learn these fretted shapes right here. So yeah, we have the first chord D, which I'm just barring at the 10th fret. And then we have C, which is the 8th fret. And then we have G, okay? Now for C, what I like to do to emulate the acoustic guitar intro in the beginning is I like to bar it and then add my ring finger to the 10th fret on the 5th string and my pinky on the 10th fret on the 4th string. So the voicings end up being, or the voices end up being C, A, D, E. It gives you like the C sus sound, which is perfect for the recording, and it's really what he's doing. He's playing like a D shape to start out, and then he's moving his middle finger to that C. That's in standard tuning, by the way. So it's really like a C sus sound that is going on, and then we're going to G. So it ends up sounding like this. Now what's cool is if you go to that C sus sound, if you finger picking it, if you move your fingers to the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th strings, you end up getting that higher voicing too. Just adds a little bit more movement in the chord. Now another thing you can do is while we're doing that D, we add these, we make it a sus chord. So how we can do that is if I'm just picking strings 3, 4, 5, and 6, I'll add my middle finger to the 11th fret on the 3rd string, make it a G sus4 sound. And then what I'll do is I'll just pick strings 4, 5, and 6 and add my ring finger to the 12th fret on the 4th string to make it a D sus2 sound. So we get this figure. So one more time. Okay, then we have again. So one more time. You can do that same sus trick over the G as well. That sounds really nice too. It has kind of this sort of country vibe to it. It's definitely that southern southern rock country vibe sort of thing going on. Which a good rule of thumb with that is you can generally make all those major chords into sus chords, and it sounds really nice. The only exception is with that C. If we did it like a C sus4 in that instance, it wouldn't really fit anymore because, you know, we're kind of breaking out of that Mixolydian vibe that the song has. You know, Mixolydian mode is just a major scale, but with a flatted seventh. And if we just do an F natural, which isn't part of that mode, it begins to sound like a Rolling Stones tune, like. Nothing wrong with that, but it's just not really the vibe of the tune. Now, the other thing I want you to be aware of are the Roman numerals for the tune. So if we're just looking at the strict Roman numeral analysis, this would be the 1 chord, the C would be the flat 7th chord, and then this G would be the 4. And, you know, if you're just like comping and, you know, just playing a supporting role, this C will work great in most scenarios, but it just sounds a little bit closer to the recording if you make it C sus. All right. So, yeah, that's the chords. Let's talk about the flute part. Now, obviously the guitar doesn't play that flute melody, but it's a good thing to learn, and it sounds really nice on slide. So let's learn that. So we're going to be playing the 10th fret, and just turn up my volume a little bit. We're going to be playing the 10th fret on the 4th string, and then we're going to be doing the 10th fret again, but as a grace note to the 10th fret on the 3rd string. So now another thing I also like to add is a hammer-on behind fretting behind the slide. So I go and then pluck that again, and then I'll fret behind the slide at the 11th fret, and I just hammer on with the slide. So that looks like this. So now you could go like you could slide into that note, but the thing about flute is it can't do a true slide. All they can do are just still call a slide like for flute, but it's not a true slide. It's like a it's just a kind of at a loss for words for it, but they're basically just hitting these two notes right here with one breath, which creates a smoother sound, but it's not the same thing as doing a slide like this, which is more of a glissando effect. You know, you can hear those notes in between the frets. Now, to do that with flute, that's not really exactly what they're doing. It's more like they're hitting two notes with one breath. They're not tonguing each one of the notes. Slur, that's what it's called. Just could not remember the term for the life of me for a second there. So we're doing essentially a slur or a hammer-on with a slide between those two notes. So, and you know, that movement between the 10th fret on the 4th string and that hammer-on is quick. It's like... Then after that, we're going to the 10th fret on the 2nd string. And so that sounds like this so far. Then we're going 10, 12. So far we have the intervals 1, 1, hammer on from the 2 to the 3. And I'm just doing this by the key. I'm not doing it over each chord like you would analyze it using like jazz theory or something. I'm just doing it based on the key of the tune. So, and then we have the 5. Then we're going 10, 12, which is the 5 and 6 of the tune. And then I'm doing another hammer-on pull-off like a trill. So I'm just going fretting behind the slide and then lifting my finger to hammer on with the slide and then fretting again. So it's... Then I'm just going back to the 10th fret on the 4th string. So far we have... And then we're going 10th fret, and then 9th fret on the 3rd string, which is your F natural. Now, before I go any further, I know I said the song is in the mixolydian mode and that we shouldn't add that F, because it's just going to give it kind of the wrong vibe. But that's within the chords. With the chords, we generally want to stick to the mode of the song. When we're playing a melody or a lead part, we can actually treat it more like we would a blues. You know, any song that has a flat 7 in the chords or a flat 3rd in the chords, so in this case, in the key of D, it would be C and F, we can treat it like a blues progression where we can, you know, use both major pentatonic and minor pentatonic of the key. So major pentatonic for D would be D, E, F sharp, A, B, D. Then minor pentatonic would be D, F, G, A, C, D. So major pentatonic would be intervals 1, 2, 3, 5, 6, 1. Minor pentatonic would be 1 flat 3, 4, 5, flat 7, 1. So we can do this kind of flirting thing between major and minor pentatonic, just like you would over a standard blues. So same sort of vibe. I had a friend tell me a while ago that the 1 flat 7 4 progression is like the equivalent progression for rock music as, you know, the 1 4 5 with all dominant chords is to blues music. You can treat them the same way as far as just like that major and minor pentatonic thing. And yes, it's just a very cool thing to do. So hold on one second, just want to make sure my computer is still recording. Awesome. Okay, sweet. That'd be tragic if my computer stopped recording. It just went to sleep, so I just wanted to make sure it wasn't stopping recording at all. All right, anyways, so to finish off the melody, we have 1 flat 3rd F, which is the 9th fret on the 3rd string, and then 10th fret. And then we do another trill between the 9th and 11th fret on the 3rd string with the slide, and then ending on the 10th fret. So the entire melody from top to bottom is... Alright, so that's the intro melody. It's played on flute, but it works really great for slide. Now, let's talk about some soloing ideas. So I already talked about how you can do major and minor pentatonic over it. So what you can do is, start, working on mixing them. So a great box to learn for this sort of thing, for the major pentatonic, is something I picked up from, I forget the guy's name, but he was a dobro player where, he was playing it that way. But it's a great box to learn around here. So we have the 6th string, 10th fret, then we have the 12th fret, 14th, so that's intervals 1, 2, 3, and then 10, 12, and then on the 5th string, and then 10, 12, and then we're just actually doubling up on the other string. So on the 4th string is 10, 12, 14, skipping the 3rd string, 10, 12, and then on the 1st string, 10, 12, 14. So we get this sort of sound. We can do the same thing and make it minor. We can go 10, 13, 15, 10, 12, and then just repeating the same thing, still skipping the third string. Or so it's another way to play your major and minor pentatonic shapes. It's just skipping the third string. Seems a little weird at first, but you'll get used to it after a while. And before we actually dig into like some of those ways to play the scale, let's just talk about the melody. Now, before you even attempt to learn or solo over the tune, I really suggest you knowing the melody. First, start by humming it. Then maybe hum it with a basic sense of timing, like, just tapping your foot or slapping your leg or, beating your chest or whatever. Just really knowing the melody. Gonna take your freight train. Ba 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 ba. Ba 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 ba. Ba 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 ba. Ba 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 ba. Ba 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 ba. Here comes the chorus. Ba ba ba. Ba ba ba. Ba 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 ba. Ba 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 ba. Ba ba ba. Ba ba ba. Ba 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 ba. Ba 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 ba. All right. Now, I know I'm not hitting the notes perfectly in tune with my voice, but that's not the point. We're trying to be able to play it using your imagination. Now, the next step is transferring that to the guitar. So once you can hum it, you can definitely pick it out on guitar. It might take a little while if you're not used to this sort of thing, but trust me, you're able to do it. If you can hum the tune, you can play it on guitar. So play on guitar, it would sound like this. So what am I doing there? I'm just going the 10th fret on the 3rd string. Gonna take a freight train. Or gonna take a freight train. So I'm going 10th fret, 8th, 10th fret on the 3rd, 8th fret on the 3rd, and then 10th fret on the 4th string. Gonna take a freight train. Then going to the 10th fret on the 2nd string. Down at the. Then 3rd string, 10th fret. Station Lord. So sliding from 12 or 10 to 8 on the 3rd string, and then 10 on the 4th string. So down at the station Lord. And then I'm going 8th fret, hitting that flat 7th on the 4th string, and then 10th fret to the root. I don't care. And then, hitting that flat 3rd on the 3rd string, so the 9th fret. And I'll just bend it slightly at tune, which is not an exact science. We're not really, you could bend up all the way to that major 3rd F sharp, but I'm kind of just doing it by ear. I'm not thinking of it as exact science. This is where you can start learning how to flirt between this major and minor pentatonic land. And it's a microtonal thing. We're not exactly sliding up to the major 3rd. We're not really staying on the minor 3rd. It's somewhere in between those two areas. So I don't care where it goes. So after that, I'm just going from 10, 8, 5 on the 4th string. So 1, flat 7, 5. So just to recap that. Gonna take a freight train down at the station, Lord. I don't care where it goes. And yeah, so next would be the chorus. Can't you see? Can't you see what that woman has been doing to me? So right there we have the 10th fret on the 3rd string, or 10th fret on the 4th string, can't you see? And then on the 3rd string, 10th fret as well. And then we're going, so I'm going 3rd string, 4th string at the 10th fret, and then 8th fret on the 3rd string, which, you know, if you follow the chords, it'd be, can't you see? Can't you see what that woman? And then when we go to the D on the 3rd string, we're, what that woman? You know, landing on that D, which is a chord tone of the G. So the melody follows the chord tones as well. It's really important you understand the relationship between the melody and the chords. They're very much related. You know, it's just not like we're taking this melody or these chord boxes and we're just like, you know, it's like throwing putty against the wall. There's a relationship there, and it's really important you understand that relationship. It's just going to help you become a better soloist by really understanding the melody, okay? Now, just to recap the melody. Can't you see? The melody of the chorus, anyways. Now that last part, I'm just going 1 flat 3rd. So 1 flat 3rd, root, flat 7, 5. Okay? So that's the entire thing. So the melody from top to bottom. Now the chorus. I know I'm not like playing it perfectly as the record, you know, is playing it. That's not really the point. I'm just taking the melody that you hear on the record, and I'm just kind of distilling it down to a more simple form. Because when you heard Marshall Tucker play the song, they never played it the same way twice. They never phrased the melody the same way twice. But you gotta understand that if you distill the melody down to its most basic form, it's gonna sound something like I just played. And that's gonna give you a lot more freedom to mess around with these different voicings as well. Okay? So next step with soloing is learn that melody in different places. So the most simple way to do that, if you're playing slide, is just take everything and slide up 12 frets. Then we all right, we can learn it an octave down. Then the chorus. So learn the melody in as many areas of the fretboard as you can and as many octaves as you can. That's a really cool thing to be able to do during a solo. You know, you could kind of think of the solo as bookends with the melody, where you might begin it. Then you can do some. So you notice how I began the solo with like quoting the melody, did my own thing in between, and then ended the solo by quoting the melody again, but in a higher register, just to add that exclamation point. That's a great way to approach it as well. Now, one more second, just actually recording this a different way today. I wasn't anticipating my computer sleeping, so I'll fix that for future videos. But all right, so now we've learned the melody. We've learned to embellish the melody by playing in different areas and octaves of the neck. And we've learned how you could like structure your solo by like inserting your own thing in between those two chords of the melody. Now, the other thing that's really cool to do is to outline the chords. Now, this is not like, necessarily like a bebop approach, what I'm talking about. Although, you could consider it under the same umbrella. But we're going to take a more chordal approach. So if we're outlining the chords, one thing I like to do is kind of stealing from pedal steel players, is just going... Alright, so what I'm doing there is I'm just in position for each of the chords. I'm just going 10, or the first string, second string, then doing double stop on the second, third, and doing that per chord. Then one thing you can always do is, you can go 10 frets behind and just add some chromaticism. So. Alright, you notice how I was actually anticipating the chord changes? You can do it like a half beat before the chord change. So this is the upbeat, and then this is the chord change. This is the upbeat while I'm still on D, then that's the change to C. So if this is the timing, 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Alright, so you can anticipate the chord changes just by, a beat or something like that. You just have to land at the right place, or else it's just going to sound messed up and not like the chord changes to the listener. You could also do something like this. Alright, so that's another thing you can do. I'm just like going back and forth between the fourth, third, second, and just going back again. If we do that, that's, 4, 3, 2, 3. That's 16th note, so 1 E and 2 E and 3 E and 4 E and 1 E and 2 E and 3 E and 4 E and 1 E and 2 E and 3 E and 4. Okay, so that's outlining the chords in the soloing. So just to recap, you can always solo using the melody as a basis. You can embellish the melody to take it a little bit further. You can add your own thing in between those two quotes of the melody. Just doing all that like Duane Allman, Derek Trucks stuff that we know and love. You can always add that in between. And then you can play on the chord using the chord changes as source of inspiration for your melody. So stealing from pedal steel players. You could also steal from like sax players. Doing enclosures and all this other sort of crazy stuff. But anyways, that's the video for today, guys. I hope you found that helpful. And yeah, just want to mention to, like this video, comment on it. The comments really help me think of ideas for what to go over in the next video. Ring the bell to be notified when I release a new video. Share this with your friends, do all those things. And most importantly, subscribe to my Patreon. So including this video, every video I make on here, or just about every video, I include tabs and notation that are only available on my Patreon. So please check that out. I'm going to have tabs and notations based on the ideas for this video. And, it's only $10 a month I charge. And with that, you get all the previous notation I've made for other videos. You can also buy the notation individually in my shop, if you don't want to subscribe to a whole month for a slightly less cost than a subscription. But yeah, please subscribe to my Patreon. I'm really proud of how it's coming along so far, and it really helps keep the lights on around here and my channel growing and, just doing its thing. So anyways, guys, I will see you soon. Take care.